Hey guys, welcome back to another video with Lim Reviews. In today's video, we'll be taking a quick look at the Amazfit GTS versus the Huawei GT2 that I have here. And on my left, we have the Amazfit GTS, whereas on the right, this is the somewhat new Huawei GT2. So my Huawei GT2 is the 42mm version. There is a larger version, the 46, but I decided to go with the 42 because of my pretty slim wrist right here. So to start off, let me just talk about the price. Right off the bat, the Amazfit GTS is much more cheaper than the Huawei GT2. The Amazfit GTS comes in at about 860 yuan that I bought here in China, which is equivalent to about 120 US dollars. So on the contrary, the Huawei GT2 is way more expensive. It is about 1,400 yuan, which is approximately 200 US dollars. So between both these watches, the Huawei GT2 is 80 US dollars more than the Amazfit GTS. So what does that extra price actually get you? Well, let's check it out. So both these watches actually look very different, as we can see here. The Amazfit GTS is squarish, whereas the Huawei GT2 comes in this round form factor. So first up, let's just take a quick look at the build quality of the Amazfit GTS. This is pretty good actually. Amazfit GTS is the smartwatch that I've been using for a very long time, almost about 2 months now. And so far, as you can see on my screen, on my display right here, there has not been any scratches. It still looks perfectly fine. It is a very lightweight watch. You don't feel much quality here, and this seems to be made of plastics, and I'm not too sure about the sides. Amazfit claims there are some kind of metal, but I still think it's some kind of plastic. The bands are actually very good. They are very elastic, but it is a bit difficult to slot in because these bands are actually very thick. So it is a bit difficult to put it on, and I've been using it for about, like I said, 2 months now, and I still have issues trying to put the band on. So build quality wise, it is actually good. I would say it's very sturdy, but it doesn't feel as premium as the Huawei GT2 that I have right here. So the Huawei GT2 feels very much more expensive. Just by holding it itself, you notice that it is a bit more heavier than the Amazfit GTS. And if you take a quick look around, this looks very nice here. It seems like a metallic all over the sides here. The back is also made out of plastics. But if you notice on the back, we actually do have more sensors right there. On the Amazfit GTS, we actually have this 1, 2, 3 sensors right here, whereas there is 4 sensors on the Huawei GT2. So overall, like I mentioned, the build quality is very good on the Huawei GT2. It definitely feels more premium compared to the Amazfit GTS, but again, I'm not complaining about the GTS right here. It's just that the Huawei GT2 feels like it is more premium compared to the Amazfit GTS. Alright, in terms of display size, as we can see here, of course, because the Amazfit GTS uses a square size, so it looks a bit bigger, but it's actually not much different compared to the Huawei GT2. So Huawei GT2 actually has a very thick bezel surrounding the watch, as you can see. Let me just try and get you a different watch face for you to understand. If I use this pretty ugly watch face right here, you can see how thick the bezels are. The Amazfit GTS also comes with a pretty similarly thick bezel, but if you use a dark wallpaper like I did earlier on, you'll notice that you won't be able to see the bezels that much. In this case, I just want to show it right here to you guys so you can tell like the thickness in bezels for both these watches are actually very similar. So in terms of how much information you can get on your screen, I actually sent a quick text to my watch, and let me just show you guys really quick here. So alright, so this is how notifications look like on the smart watches. So let me just tap that, and I actually try to put in as much text as I can, and notice that both these watches are able to show the exact amount of text on both their displays. So the way the Amazfit GTS does it is a bit different because it is a square screen. So this is what it can do. But on the Huawei GT2, the fonts are actually very much smaller, but I would say that it is also still very much visible. And yeah, both these watches are able to handle long text pretty well. Alright, so moving on, let me just talk about the battery life on both these watches. The Amazfit GTS right here is actually the champion of battery life right now, and this is able to last about 14 days if you do not turn on the always on display. So 14 days on the Amazfit GTS, whereas on the GT2 it is divided by 2. You only have 7 days of battery life on the Huawei GT2. So in terms of battery life, if you don't use the always on display on both these watches, the GT2 actually finishes power way more quicker than the Amazfit GTS. However, being able to charge your watch just once a week to me is not a major issue. So if you turn on the always on display, then the GTS and the GT2 actually have both very short lifespans. For the GTS, it is about 2 to 3 days with always on display, and for the GT2 it is about 1 to 2 days maximum for the battery life. Alright, moving on, let me just talk quickly about the tracking and how these work on both these watches. As you know, these are fitness trackers, and how it tracks your heart rate, your sleep, and all that is actually very important. So for heart rate tracking, I actually got an Omron blood pressure monitor right here that I compared the results of both these watches against. And good news is that both these watches have very accurate heart rate trackers. The bad news is that the Amazfit GTS comes with a lot of false readings. For example, when I place the watch just on the desk, when I'm not actually using the watch, it actually tracks some kind of heart rate. So I've run the latest firmware on my Amazfit GTS, and this still seems to be an issue with the Amazfit GTS. I can't say the same for the Huawei GT2. The Huawei GT2 actually doesn't come up with any false heart rate readings, so that is perfectly fine. In terms of sleep tracking, again, both these watches are very different in such that the Amazfit GTS once again comes with false readings. So again, when I place this watch on the desk, sometimes it thinks that I'm actually sleeping. So I do not know what is the deal with the Amazfit GTS. And once again, in terms of the sleep tracking for the Huawei GT2, it does the job very well and it's very accurate. So to quickly show you what I mean, let's just head into the Amazfit app right now, and let me just show you the readings that I got for my sleep. According to the Amazfit GTS, I actually wore both these smartwatches to sleep earlier on. It is currently 5 a.m. right now, but let me show you what it says on the Amazfit GTS. So it says here that my sleep last night was 6 hours and my sleep started at 9:43 p.m. That is definitely not true because I only went to bed at about 1 a.m. So as you can see here, the sleep, it is tracking my sleep, some kind of sleep actually. I do not know what kind of sleep, when there is no one actually wearing the watch. And you can see it right here, throughout this period, I'm actually not wearing the watch. And so I get this false reading. It is very inaccurate. If I move on to the Huawei app, let me just show you guys really quick right here. And you can see that my bedtime is actually 12:59, and that is way more accurate. This is exactly what I did earlier on, which is 1 a.m. to 4 a.m. So I only slept for 3 hours. So once again, just to clarify, both these watches have accurate sensors, but in terms of false readings, the Amazfit GTS just comes up with so many false readings for both the heart rate tracking as well as the sleep tracking that if you want to check your results like over a long period of time, the Amazfit GTS is definitely something that you must note the issue that it has. And if you just want something that is more accurate, definitely the Huawei GT2 here is the better device. Moving on to the fitness tracking, both these watches actually track a lot of fitness activities, for instance like running, walking, outdoor cycling, as well as the swimming. So again, the differences between both these watches is that they both track this fitness walking all very accurately, but the GPS on the Amazfit GTS is very poor. So if you're tracking your location, you don't want to use the Amazfit GTS because it's just very bad. Like it's very difficult to lock on to locations, whereas on the Huawei GT2, I wouldn't say it is very good, but it definitely does a better job compared to the GTS. So both these watches have GPS built in, but the one on the Huawei GT2 is just that much slightly better than the Amazfit GTS. Alright guys, so now that I've talked about most of the features for both these smartwatches, let me just talk about the extra functions that you get on either of these watches. So on the Amazfit GTS, the good thing here is that it comes with a ton of watch faces. There is about more than 100 watch faces right now, if I'm not mistaken. And whereas on the Huawei GT2, you only get like less than 15 watch faces. However, on the Huawei GT2, there are a lot of things that you can do that you can't do on the Amazfit GTS. For example, you can play music. You can actually store music on this watch. It comes with 2 GB of memory, and you can store some songs on it, and you can connect your Bluetooth earphones to your watch. Another thing that you can do is that it has a built-in air pressure monitor. It also has a built-in compass, so it has more features compared to the Amazfit GTS. At the end of the day, let me just say this really quickly. Both these smartwatches are equivalent to like the upgraded version of the Honor Band as well as the Mi Band. So they are just very much glorified, better versions of those smart bands. But what I want to note here is that you get what you pay for. So at the beginning of the video, I mentioned that the Amazfit GTS is 80 bucks cheaper than the Huawei GT2. And for that lower amount of money, you actually get a pretty decent watch, but without very accurate heart rate or sleep tracking sensors. On the other hand, if you pay a bit more for the Huawei GT2, what you get here is a slightly better device, better trackings, better readings altogether, and yeah. So which would you choose? Would you go with the Amazfit GTS or would you go with the Huawei GT2? Let me know down in the comment section below which you actually prefer, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye!